Jaden Rashada is out for spring ball. These are the guys that we need to watch closely.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day and making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, turn on notifications wherever you're getting your podcasts, and stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Ladies and gentlemen, we are just 2 short days away from spring ball, from having fresh stuff to talk about, from watching our guys and seeing how they have progressed from the end of last season going into the second offseason under Kenny Dillingham. It's going to be a very exciting, hopefully very eventful time for the Sun Devils over the next month to see where they are at. But with that in mind, we're not going to be able to see them at 100%. There are 3 players who are going to be missing from spring ball, including offensive tackle Bram Walden and wide receiver Xavier Guillory. However, the biggest name is Jaden Rashada, who is going to be on the mend from a thumb surgery he got recently. That's a bummer for sure. Like, we're gonna miss seeing number 5 on the field and what he would potentially bring to the spring ball, because you would hope that he has made some very positive strides from the last game of the year when he played U of A going into year 2 of the offseason and having a better grasp of the playbook and having better connection and chemistry with his guys. We're going to have to wait until training camp down in late July to early August. We're going to have to wait. That's okay. We are still going to be, in the meantime, paying attention to see how the other guys are going to look. And that's where our conversation is today, is who we need to pay the closest attention to. And it's easy to start off, of course, with Trenton Bourguet. And with Bourguet, you've got the savvy veteran who's been there, done that, knows his way around the campus, knows his way around the football program. He is very familiar with some of the guys that are going to be returning. He's got 3 years of actual, significant playing time. Well, I guess only 2 years of significant playing time, but he's had a long time to grow a bond and some chemistry with Elijah Badger, which is massive. He's familiar with some of the other guys like Bryce Pierre. He's obviously got a whole season working with Cameron Scadaboo. There is plenty here for Bourguet to work with. And of course, he is also a year into the Kenny Dillingham era. And you would like to see that he is becoming more comfortable in the offensive scheme. And you would like to see that he overall is getting a better grasp on things, because for all accounts and purposes, he struggled in his first season under Kenny Dillingham. But in fairness to him, everybody struggled. There was almost no player on the offensive side of the ball last year who had an exceptionally good year. You had quality years from Cameron Scadaboo, from Elijah Badger, but outside of those skill position guys, the quarterback struggled. Jaden Rashada looked like he was the best, but he also looked like a true freshman at quarterback. Trenton Bourguet, look, I understand it was 1 touchdown to 4 interceptions. I understand that he was barely 60% completion. I look at the bulk of the work we've seen from Bourguet, and I feel like you're much closer to him being at least an average quarterback than a below average quarterback. And again, something really important is the chemistry that he's been able to build with the guys at the program. And unlike the other 2 guys we're going to talk about, he does have a year in the Kenny Dillingham offense. It should be able to give him a leg up over the other 2 guys that we're going to talk about. It should in theory, mean that he kind of walks into this as QB2 and could walk out as QB2. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be an uphill battle for him, but we're going to be paying attention to see how Bourguet looks. This is going to be his last season as a redshirt junior. He's had good amount of playing time the last 2 years, filling in for Emory Jones during injury in the 2022 season. And then last year, during the amount of injuries that they had, he was the lone quarterback who was mostly healthy. He was, knocked out of a couple of games because of injury, but for the bulk of the season, Bourguet was the starting quarterback for the team. That all matters. So that's where I think he could have a leg up on some of the other guys. But as far as the upside goes, I'm just not sure that Bourguet matches the guy that we're going to talk about next, who is, of course, Sam Levitt. And Sam Levitt is also a redshirt freshman along with Jaden Rashada. Same same recruiting class. Both of them are 4-star quarterbacks. Both of them were top 20 quarterbacks. He's another very talented player, and he's somebody that can beat you in more ways than one. He is able to beat you as a runner. He does have an adequate arm, but he only played 4 games last year, and you are really limited in what you've been able to see. He did complete 65% of his passes, but he also only had 23 passing attempts, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 5.2 yards per run. That is on 13 carries, 3 of those being sacks. So the potential's there. And quite frankly, Kenny Dillingham said to Bourguet and to Rashada after the offseason during exit interviews that, hey, I'm going to be bringing in competition for you guys. Both of them responded well. They said, bring them in. We're here for competition. But you don't bring in competition and not give that guy an opportunity to be the starter. And Levitt is going to have a chance here to really make a great first impression. He's a very talented quarterback, and he's somebody that Dillingham obviously identifies as a good fit for his offense. Is he going to be able to slide into that? Well, that's what spring ball is going to show us, because with Jaden Rashada out, I think right now Levitt comes into this spring session as QB2 behind Bourguet being QB1 for now. There's a chance he might be able to usurp Bourguet by the end of spring ball. And that would be huge, because if you were to see him finish ahead of Bourguet, there's a few things that kind of come into play. Obviously, you talk about the upside, you talk about the complete package that he is, blah, blah, blah. But you can also talk about how ASU is going with a significant, and I mean significant, youth movement at the quarterback spot. You would be talking about 2 redshirt freshmen who are QBs 1 and 2 for you, and 2 exciting guys, 2 high upside guys, 2 very, very highly touted guys that were coming out of high school. That is a thought. That is an idea that a lot of people can get behind. A lot of people can get really excited about. That's where I'm kind of at with what are we going to see from Sam Levitt. Because if he shows out the way that I think he possibly can, then you're going to have someone who is very, very exciting to watch. Sam Levitt, absolutely one of the biggest names to watch, not just at quarterback, but on the offense and out in the defense, and just flat out one of the most important players that we are going to be paying attention to during spring ball. There's another quarterback I want to talk about, and then we're going to round out our conversation here. We're going to get to it in just one moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, and you can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Also want to talk to you about our friends over at Nissan. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest. And just like the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. The Michigan State Spartans, of course, can only be described as the Pathfinder. They were able to advance to the round of 32 after knocking off Mississippi State in the first round of the tournament. Many questioned that they deserved a spot in the big dance, and they found themselves dancing right into the second round. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop at nissanusa.com. Let's round out our conversation now talking about the other quarterbacks that I'm excited about. Of course, wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. Let's discuss the last quarterback that I won't say is noteworthy, but the one that I'm going to be paying attention to the most, I suppose. And that's Navi Bruzan. And Bruzan has been the subject of this podcast many times. In fact, yesterday, I talked about Navi Bruzan for the reason that Kenny Dillingham was hyping up Navi Bruzan. In case you are not aware, in case you have not listened to previous podcasts, Bruzan is a two-time Gatorade Player of the Year and a two-time state champion. He played at Liberty High School out in Peoria. He is, not the biggest guy in the world. He's around 5'10", 5'11", somewhere in that ballpark. He's not looking like some masterpiece that like a Jaden Rashada looks at 6'4", 200 pounds. I get it. He doesn't look like your standard quarterback that you see in 2024. But what he lacks in the physical gifts that some of these other guys have, he makes up for in heart and play style, because he's somebody that is able to throw the football very, very well. And he's somebody who is willing to outwork and outgrind the guys ahead of him. He doesn't care whether you are destined for the NFL one day or if you are just another guy. Navi Bruzan wants to be you. And Kenny Dillingham has noticed. And offensive coordinator Marcus Arroyo has noticed. They are taking special attention to Bruzan. They've highlighted him by themselves. It's not like somebody raised their hand and said, "What do you think of Navi Bruzan?" No. Dillingham brought him up and said, "You guys need to watch this kid. You need to watch this zero-star quarterback recruit, I should say, and see how good he's going to be and see that he blows you guys away." That is noteworthy. He's going to be one of the quarterbacks that gets overlooked the most during spring ball, because we'll all be looking at Bourguet and Levitt, and rightfully so. However, Bruzan has a chance here to show off why he deserves your attention, to show off how talented he is, and as I have said before, become the face of the hashtag Activate the Valley movement. Because what they are doing with bringing in Bruzan and giving him an opportunity here is they're showing that everyone else in the Valley has an opportunity to be a significant player for Arizona State, be the hometown hero, whether you're a 5-star or you're a preferred walk-on. You have that chance, you have that opportunity at Arizona State. Bruzan can absolutely be the epitome of that. Pay attention to those three. Bottom line here, it's going to be one of the biggest hot topics. And we're going to talk about it more than once during the next month of spring ball. We got to have updates on how Levitt looked, how Bourguet looked, how Bruzan looked, how anybody else that is going to be getting snaps at the quarterback position looked. This is a very, very intriguing positional battle and storyline to watch for the next month, to watch for the entirety of spring ball. Even if Rashada was healthy, I mean, we still would be paying attention to it because you brought in Sam Levitt. But without Rashada, who ends spring ball as QB2? And do they end so well that come training camp in the fall, maybe they end up arguing to be QB1? There's a lot at stake here for these guys. And we've talked about guys who have the most to gain. But that was before we found out Rashada was injured. Now we can update and tell you that these three quarterbacks and whoever else is on the roster have the biggest chance, the biggest opportunity to show off, shine brighter than everybody else, and really audition themselves for big-time roles in the future of the program for the quarterback position. That's all I got for you guys as far as the Jaden Rashada situation goes, who you need to be paying attention to. Appreciate you, as always, making us your first listen of the day. A shout-out to my everydayers who are here every day. Wherever you get your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. You can follow me at Twitter at RichieBrads36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will see you guys again tomorrow as we do one final highlight and one final preview for spring ball, overall encompassing what I'll be paying attention to. Tune in. I'll see you then. Till then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun.